Moments of Making is a multimedia exhibition reflecting on artistic processes and methodologies at the Center for the Less Good Idea since inception in 2016. The exhibition will run on screen from Monday until the 22nd of October. Noah Cohen, the cinematography and editing director at the center, says it has built up a comprehensive archive of artistic process. He joins us now for more details on that production. Noah, thank you so much for your time this evening. Now, let's perhaps begin by talking a little bit about the Center for Less Good and its broader contribution towards the arts.
So the Center for the Less Good Idea, it's an interdisciplinary art space, which means we invite artists from many different disciplines, whether that's dance, acting, boxers, architects. You can come from anywhere, but the goal is that it is performed in the end of the day. So we work in sort of a workshop model where we develop work, and then it's performed at the end of those workshops, usually 6 months or 9 months. And we're working in our 10th season now. So, yeah, and we've worked with over 800 artists, and we focus very much on process. So part of my job and part of many of the mirrors in the room, we call them, is to be present during these workshops and during an artist's process. And we film and write about these processes. So what the Moments of Making is a showing of that process.
Mm-hmm. Now, speaking of that process and also having 800 artists having come through your doors, the renowned William Kentridge is one of the center's founders. What artistic sources of inspiration do you pass on to these 800 that you constantly find live throughout the center?
Well, the main sort of ethos of the center, which is the less good idea, is it comes from a Setswana proverb. I'll try and say it. And I may have gotten that horribly wrong, but I tried. I'm sorry.
You did try.
And it means if the good doctor can't cure you, find a less good doctor.
Right.
And so we work in that way, in that as you are making and as you have this good idea, this big light bulb of an idea, it's inevitable in any discipline, whether it's acting, whether it's writing, whether it's architecture, that good big idea, that big light bulb will inevitably, your attachment to it will inevitably cause it to collapse in some ways. You know, if you hold tightly to those ideas, they do end up failing. So what do you turn to next? What do you turn to after that? And the less good idea is when that light bulb goes out, you look to the corners of the room for the candlelight and into the peripheries. So we're all very focused on what happens in the periphery, and oftentimes that means your collaborators. You know, when the project is about you, you're ignoring other people and what they have to offer to your process. So I think that's a huge thing the center offers, but also that the people that come and work in the center offer to the center is their willingness to collaborate.
Speaking of that collaboration, I want us maybe just to touch on the people that you collaborated with. Maybe talk us through first the curating of Moments of Making. What creative process did you embark on, and what was the objective? And then thereafter, I just want us to touch on the people you collaborated with.
Absolutely. So the goal in Moments of Making was to find literally moments of making. Because we film and write about all of these processes that are so performative in their nature, our goal was to go back into this footage that we've been shooting since 2016, days and days of footage, hours and hours, and find artists in their process and find artists discovering how their work will become what it is by the time it's performed, right? So what our original goal was to see this less good idea in action. And then as we started looking back into this footage, we started to discover that the film itself that we were making could itself be a less good idea. So yes, we were looking for moments of artists having these revelations and finding the less good idea themselves, but then we thought, okay, well, what if this film is in fact less good? And what does it mean to be less good? It means that you're collaborating. It means that you're open to the impulses that come along the way in the process. And it means that you're playful.
And in that collaboration and playfulness, you worked with some of the best, being Zain Vali on sound installation, your textual vignettes by David Mann, as well as Matangi. Talk us through that marriage of minds amongst all of you.
Absolutely. So yeah, we have these beautiful photos by Zivanai Matangi, who's been present in the room throughout the years, getting these beautiful shots of process and of motion. And Zain Vali, who worked on the sound design for this film, has always been there, as well as Dave Mann. There's this sort of approach that we have in the way we work where our primary goal is to favor the artist that's at work, the performance that's at work. So we're there, but we don't insert ourselves. And so Zain and Dave and Z are all so good at being in the room and getting a very high quality product, whether it's a sound recording or a beautiful paragraph of text or mini pages of text by Dave, but at the same time allowing the artist's process to happen in its own natural way. And the reflections and the mirrors, as I said, we do our best to give back to what we've witnessed in the room.
Of course, and a lot of this was compiled during the height of COVID. What were some of the challenges that you experienced during the time and the lessons learned taken from that 2019 to 2021 period?
We're a performance space, so performance spaces suffered during COVID, as I'm sure you know. So how we adapted was, thankfully, we have the resources of film equipment and the resources of very talented writers, directors, actors, dancers, and we said, okay, so instead of putting everyone in this one theater room with hundreds of audience, let's still work with these performers in small bits, and we'll make small films. So we would go out on site and experiment and say, okay, well, what is it? We have some ideas about a railroad and a typewriter, and let's go to those places with some ideas and some costumes, and we'll see what happens. And so we came up with quite a few series of short films that are on our YouTube channel and on our Instagram. One was called The Considered 3 Minutes, so they're 3-minute films. One was called Odd Portraits of This Place, which are all these sort of odd portraits of Johannesburg. And so that was our way of pivoting during COVID, and then now we're back to performance and back to season 10.
And with that said, what do you believe is the center's belief when it comes to the impact of the arts, especially when it comes to addressing socioeconomic factors?
Look, I think the center's main goal is to keep arts arting, to keep artists at work, and to favor the artists and to give the artists the benefit of the doubt. So there's no socio or economic goal necessarily from the center other than to say, look, you're an artist and we trust you and what you're doing. Come here, collaborate, and that's everything we can do. And we've been lucky so far because the work that's come out of the center and the people that come out of the center and the people that come to the center to work are fantastic. And the world is looking at us right now. The world is looking at South Africa. The world is looking at Johannesburg for performance.
Speaking of the world, what are some of the international opportunities that some artists have received from the center?
There's been several, and that's actually one of the main goals of the center. We've traveled to UK, Berlin, the United States, and the goal is that artists can come and develop work at the center that wouldn't normally be allowed to develop elsewhere.
Right.
Because there's a certain fringeness or even a lack of knowing what one is doing. Residencies and such require a sort of written out plan of action, and at the center we trust the artists. The artists come through, they do their work, we film it, we edit it with the beautiful production team that we have, and we say, here is this filmed version of your performance, and then you can take that nationwide, internationally, and use it to further your process in, because the performance at the center is really only one step along the way that the work might go. So, for example, the one that's talked about often is Sion, that's traveling all over the world. That was started in the center, season 1.
So what would art enthusiasts enjoy the most from this piece, and where can people access it?
So the Moments of Making exhibition, art enthusiasts would enjoy. If you're enthused with art, you know what it feels like to be immersed in the process. In fact, you don't even need to be enthused with art. If you've ever done anything that you've given your attention to, you understand the turmoils that process can bring. So art enthusiasts and anyone would enjoy coming to this exhibition, which opens next week. We have a photo exhibition, and we have a film exhibition, and we have an album and text as well, some beautiful textual excerpts. And I think what audiences would get and what our art enthusiasts would get would be an insight into what it feels like to be vulnerable, and what it feels like to be playful, and what it feels like to fail. And the center has always prided itself on being a safe space for stupidity and a safe space for failing. And so we open our arms to anyone that wants to come see what that might look like and sound like.
Well, it certainly is very inviting, Noah. Thank you so much for your time this evening, and continue with the good work that you do at the center. We really do appreciate it. That was Noah Cohen, Director of Cinematography and Editing for the Center for the Less Good Idea.